Well, welcome everybody to the Build to Overcome series. If it's your first time, if it's our first time meeting, my name is Trevon Gross Jr., and I'm the founder and CEO of Craft Your Dream Inc. And we're here tonight to simply help you grow in the way in which you lead yourself, because that is what we are all about as an organization. That's what I care about. I'm passionate about helping you become the leader that your dream life requires. And so let me tell you a little bit about kind of what we're doing here tonight. All right, let me give you just a little bit of groundwork. We're simply here as a lead up to our leadership growth conference, which is the Dreamer Symposium. It's happening December 5th and 6th. Now, why is this even significant? Why am I even telling you about this? Why are we even having a conversation tonight? Because in order for you to lead yourself well, number one, you need to know where you're going, right? So that means you need to actually have a goal. You need to actually know the destination. But in addition to that, you need to actually have a strategy as to how you're going to accomplish it. So you've heard all the time about how you have to have a vision. It needs to be clear, and that is true. But you also need a strategy, because I've talked to a number of leaders in business, in ministry, and like in a bunch of different spaces, and they have all the clarity in the world. But because they have no strategy, they start doubting themselves. They start doubting if they're able, and all these things. So we want to make sure that you have clarity and strategy. And that's what the Dreamer Symposium is all about. We're here so that way you can create a clear vision for yourself, as well as grow in your self leadership for the new year. Now, here's the caveat where we're really trying to take things to the next level with the symposium this year. Our theme is resilient leadership. Now, why is resilient leadership even relevant to you and your life? Because in order for you to go from where you are today to where you desire to be, you're going to need to overcome some stuff. And that's going to require a resilient mindset. And so we're here to talk tonight about how to not break when things get hard. Now, you might say, well, that doesn't that sound like when I'm at rock bottom? Well, yes, but the reality is, regardless if it's rock bottom or things get a little tough, you're going to encounter some hard things on the way to your goals. And so tonight's conversation is designed to simply equip you with some tools, some strategies, and some mindset shifts that'll simply help you lead yourself well, even in the midst of challenges. And so tonight I'm joined by a great friend of mine, Natalie Nolasco. She is an amazing individual, first of all, before we even get to the titles. But she is a coach. She coaches a lot of ministries. She coaches business leaders. Like, she is a leader of leaders. And so what she has to share tonight, especially with her story and her testimony, I know it's going to bless you. But even more than that, I said how she was an amazing person. I said how she's a leader in business and how she's a leader in ministry and how she helps ministries and just businesses with their vision. But she is a mother, and she does an amazing job. And so she is someone who's living her dream life. And I'm telling you all of this so that way you know that you are hearing from a proven voice when it comes to the topic of tonight of how not to break when things go hard. So first of all, Natalie, how are you doing? It's great to have you.
Yes, I'm so excited to be here. I'm doing great. So I can't wait to just dive into our segment.
Yeah, so listen, you know that we're here to really as a lead up to the symposium, and you've been to the symposium last year. Tell us a little bit before we dive into the topic about just your experience, what you learned, as well as just why other leaders in business and ministry, why they should come to the symposium too.
Yeah, I had a wonderful time at the symposium last year. One of the things that I really love about this event is that it's an on-hands experience. So it's not just an event where you go and just take in the information. You actually do the implementation on site. And I highly recommend leaders to attend the symposium because there are many principles that are taught that is relevant to all different types of contexts. And what I love about the space, it's a space where culture is curated and you can make connections and collaborations with wonderful people from different walks of life. So I definitely recommend the symposium.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. And listen, it's amazing to have you coming back again this year. And so, listen, we're looking to fill the room because there are a lot of leaders in various spaces who need to lead themselves well so that way they can get to their next level. And so I really appreciate it. So listen, tonight, our topic is how to not break when things get hard. So
Mm.
what I want to do just to kind of begin our conversation is what is your first initial reaction, your first thought, just when you hear that sentence of if someone's asking the question, how do I not break when things get hard as a leader?
Oh my. I think that's everybody's question, right? Whether they're a leader or not. How do you not break? And the truth is, you can't break because you have a greater calling. You have a great potential in you that someone else needs. So if you break, I think about who else is going to break as a result. So we really can help somebody in that stage is building that vision.
That's so good. And again, like just to even add on to your point, right? When you have a clear vision, you truly understand what's at stake. Like we can make the mistake of, especially as leaders, right, of looking at a situation that is challenging, that does bring tears to our eyes and everything, and we end up feeling like, well, this will be the moment where it's time for me to throw in the towel or whatever, without fully understanding all of the effects that if I give up, my goodness, then that I'm basically setting a precedent for my kids to think it's okay to give up. I'm setting a
Hmm.
precedent for nieces and nephews and just people who are paying attention because whether or not we know it or even want to admit it, people are watching us. And
Right.
so as we think about just again this progression between where we are today and where we want to go, one of the things in our conversation before this, you talked about the difference between, or I should say the distinction, I think that's a better word, the distinction between breaking and breaking down. Can you
Hmm.
explain that for me?
Yeah. Sometimes we go through that breaking moment because God is trying to do something in us. There's something that God is trying to mold in us, or there's something that has to be pruned, there's something that has to be modified or changed. Whenever something is shattered, you put the pieces together so it could be whole again. So there's a difference in between when you breaking because there's a purpose through that breaking, and there's a difference where you're being broken because you just don't see ahead. So I truly believe that that breaking is necessary because that is where you will get the breakthrough that you need.
That's so good. And I love that how you said breaking is necessary. Like
Yeah.
because I believe in everyone's leadership and everyone's life, you need that breaking season. You need those
Hmm.
breaking
Hmm.
situations because they ultimately mold you to be who you're supposed to be. Now, let's get really, really practical. Let's get real because breaking doesn't feel good. Yeah, I think we can all agree breaking does not feel good. So talk with me because that like even that response of okay, breaking is necessary and that sounds good conceptually to somebody. Can you
Hmm.
share with me just your experience with your ability to mature in your understanding of why breaking is necessary?
Oh my, Trev, come on. Listen, so some years ago, I went through a very heartbreaking divorce, and I felt like I had the scarlet letter on my chest. I felt broke and broken and depressed, and I had to start over. And following the divorce, I became a single mother and I was living in a basement. I had no job. I was completely jobless. And so I kept asking myself, well, why am I in this situation? And I asked myself, how am I going to get out of here? How am I going to get out of here with no money? And I knew that at that moment, the breaking process was also deconstructing some things in my mind where I had to unlearn patterns. I had to unlearn false beliefs. I had to really become the person that I am today. So the breaking really was breaking the old me, and I was molding, I was becoming that new Natalie and being able to be fully ready so that when it was time to get out of that cycle, I was ready to launch with purpose.
That's really now when you were actually first initially in the basement by yourself, like you said, single mother, did you recognize it like that? Like even like from the beginning, or was there a maturation process for you? Like how talk with me from like that A to Z. Like how did you go from okay, I'm in the basement, like obviously this shocking thing, to now it's like, okay, I'm seeing how this is molding me.
Right. So think about, I lived a stable environment. When I was married, we had everything. I never really went through significant trials like this. So going into that situation, first year or so, I was just still lamenting and crying, just asking myself, why? And I noticed that later on, the more I kept saying why or asking why, I was really delaying my purpose. And it was a moment where I was like, okay, I don't have money. I don't know how I'm gonna get out. I just had to get to that mindset, like, okay, money can't take me out, but my mind can. And that is the moment where I said, how am I going to get out? And I started to write. I had this big white poster board in my daughter's room. I started to write the things that I was going to do as I exited out the basement. Because I said, there has to be a purpose behind all this. And I know that when God takes me out, I have to be ready to carry
Right.
out what God said He's going to do in my life. So, really, yeah, the first year or so was a lot of lamenting, crying, just going through, just grieving that whole scenario, that whole trial in my life. And then the second half was like, all right, this is the situation now. This is not going to be the situation forever. We got to make a plan to get out of here. And I did.
Oh my God, there's so many gems. I want to pull a couple things out from what you said.
Come on, let's do it.
Now, you said that money, you said that you said this to yourself. Money won't get me out, my mind will.
Mm,
I think that is so powerful. And the reason why I say that is because I have learned just through conversation with people that thinking is the one thing that people forget to do.
there you
like
go.
like when things get tough, when there's a situation, and again, we're not even talking about only just the rock bottom situations, we're talking about just any challenge you endure as you lead yourself. But
Mm,
we need to take the time to think, and
yes.
understanding that when we take time to think, we walk into becoming the solution to
Right.
whatever the situation requires. And so I
Right.
think that's a really, really good point. But then I also appreciate how you got like really honest with yourself, like when you were there. Because
Hmm.
I also think that we cannot lead ourselves well and actually be relentless if we have an inflated view of who we are,
Right.
you know? And so even as I'm hearing just you describe it, it sounds like you just had a come to Jesus, a come to senses, like really, okay, this is where I am. This is just the reality of what is. Sure, we could talk about what we hope for, and yes, we're in faith for more and everything. But for right now, in this present moment, I'm in a basement and I'm by myself and I'm in this situation. I'm a single mother. And so now you made the decision to say, okay, my mind will get me out. And then it sounded like you basically created your vision
Yeah.
how to get out. Walk with me more about through that process. So you said that you got a board, but talk with us more about that because again, you and I understand the significance of a clear vision.
Right.
But walk out like the creation of that clear vision so people understand that regardless of how bad the situation may be, you can create a clear vision. Talk with me about that process for you.
Right. So going back a little bit about what you mentioned about thinking, the issue whenever we are in a situation where we feel crammed up, we have the tendency just to look at the present issue on hand. We don't look at what's ahead.
Yes.
So for the first year, I all I looked at was what's ahead of me, what's ahead of me, the pain, the suffering, the feeling restricted, feeling this, feeling that. And then I had to transition, okay, well, how am I going to look ahead? And then that's where I started to create the vision. So I remember buying this poster board from Staples, and I just started to write out year per year what I wanted my life to look like, what I wanted to sound like, what was the image, what I wanted to feel, where were the places that I wanted to stand, what my home was going to look like. And through that process of creating a vision, that is where I got my idea of opening a coaching consulting business, which I still have today. So it was in the basement where it was conceived, where it was birthed, the
Wow.
idea of becoming a coach. And I started actually doing leadership classes from my basement. Even though I had even though my environment was probably not compatible to my vision, I started to execute the vision even in that space. That way, by the time I came out, I was already equipped and prepared to continue walking in that purpose.
Oh my goodness, that's good. And so I think even as you were talking, it made me think about how we can only truly grow in situations that are unfamiliar to us. Because
Hmm.
like you had said that earlier about how like all of this was brand new, like your entire world was just leveled, like it was totally just shifted. You were in a position that you've never been in before,
Right,
and now by way of creating a vision, you basically began the very business that you continue to operate today.
right.
How do you feel about just reflecting on that? Like even now in the position that you're in, where you've now been doing this for a couple of years and been successful, like how do you feel about like just you going through that process and now we're here you are.
Sometimes I still look back and I feel like it's a dream. Just because when I started to write that vision and I started to believe it, that's one thing. It's like we always, every new year, new year, new me type of thing, right?
Oh
But
yeah.
do we believe what we're writing and declaring and what we envision? Do we believe it? And so I believed it. I believed everything that I wrote on that poster board was going to come to pass. I believed it. And not only I believed it, I lived it. Even in the uh, area that I was in, even just with the circumstances before me, I lived it. So, just writing that out and living it, when I started to do that, things moved very, very quickly. Within months, I had my business office in a corporate building. Within months, I started to coach individuals outside of the country remotely. Things started to move fast because provision follows vision. So it's so
Yes.
important to have that vision, believe it, execute it, live it day in and day out, and you will see how everything just fall into play.
That's good. I like that you have to believe it and you have to live it out.
Yep,
And like I would even go as far to say like you can't live it out if you don't believe it.
there you go.
And like when you actually and the living it out piece for anyone listening is where we get very very practical, right? Because believing it is more than just okay, I can write it down and feel confident in that moment. It's like no, I can go out into my world and say to somebody else, hey, this is what I'm believing for. Hey, this is what I expect to have happen. Like I'm expecting good results. And other people might look at you crazy and say, well, wait, aren't you in a basement? Wait, didn't that happen to you? Wait, this, that, and the other. But when you truly believe in the vision that you've created, the vision that's been given to you from God, the vision that you came up with through your own intelligence, but when you believe it, you live it out and it makes it very easy to just navigate life. So I think that's a really, really key point when you think about just believing the vision that you create, even when
Right.
things get hard. But that should cause you to truly live it out, meaning that you can stand on what you created. Now I'm interested in knowing, because the story sounds amazing. We can make a movie off of it. Tell me
Hmm.
about the time when you felt like breaking down. Tell me about just how you because I believe we all at least in these types of situations face a crossroads where we can make the decision of okay, I'm going to allow this to be breaking or or this is going to be my breaking down moment. Talk with me about just an instance where you dealt with that crossroads.
Yeah, there were several moments where I just wanted to quit, and I was like, this is it. And I really thought that that was going to be my situation permanently. And, but it was just something in me was like, but you can't quit because again, the vision is there. and you can't let the vision die. And then, of course, you have a small child that depends on you. And it's not just about my child, it's about a remnant of people that are attracted to my voice. And I think about, well, what did God say? All of those things came into play. And I'm like, I just can't quit. I can't
So
quit.
good.
And so every single day, and we talked about this off camera. Every single day I have a prayer time, right? And every single day, whether I was in tears, whether I didn't want to pray, I sat in my prayer chair. So, and the same thing I applied to all of my, my ventures and just building that vision. Even when I was just breaking down, crying, I was still right on that. I'm getting out of here. My daughter and I, we're gonna, even in the middle of that. So it's like you have to pull that within you, right? And it comes really through pain, right? Because purpose it needs pain. So that is where I just pulled that resilience in me, and I said I just can't quit. And I continue to practice it. I continue to live out my vision. I continue to proclaim it, and every day I got stronger and stronger.
I love that. So what I'm hearing just in your answer is that in order for us as leaders to be resilient, we have to have a certain set of disciplines.
Yeah,
That even when things get hard, we cannot just go with how we feel.
right.
Because when things are hard, everything's gonna feel hard. Like everything just feels like you feel like no traction's being had, you feel like no progress is being made, and you
Hmm.
just have to basically stick to the plan, stick to the play, stick to the strategy, which requires discipline. With that,
Right.
that's pretty much what I'm getting from your answer.
Right, right. And it requires discipline because you can't expect to get momentum or you can't expect to get results if there are, no set rules of strategies or discipline. So it's like discipline has nothing to do with how you feel. So there were moments that I didn't feel my best, but I knew that at 6 o'clock I had to be at my chair. I knew that at 7 o'clock I had to be writing this project or doing this leadership class. So I had to learn how to separate my emotions from what the vision said. So and that's something that the only way you can do it is really through discipline. And there are times that we're not going to always feel 100%. There are moments that, you're going to feel at 20, you're going to feel at 30, but it's the key of discipline that's going to help you see the vision come to pass.
I love that. And I love that separation of emotions from
Hmm.
discipline because I'm totally with you. Like discipline has nothing to do with how you feel. Like you don't have to feel good. It's a matter of do you want the results that discipline gives you. And so even in that, and we were talking about this offline, I want you to go deeper in this in how when we have that clear vision and we operate in our discipline, that it unlocks gifts.
Mm.
Talk with us about that because I think that's a really important point that the leaders listening need to know about.
Yeah, there were so many things in me that I didn't know I was capable of doing. I mean, I knew that I was called to work with leaders, but I never knew that I had the gift of being able to help transform mindsets. And I think that I had to go through that because it was a whole mindset transformation for myself. But I didn't really know that I was capable of helping other people shift their mindset to think and do better. And so I started to see like, oh, wait a second. I have this gift of mindset strategy. I have this gift of building. I have this gift. And it was really through that, exploring who I was in the middle of all this restriction that I was able to see that and those things came to surface.
Ooh, that's so good. That's so good. And what I love about that answer is the fact that you won't discover your gifts if you're not willing to go out into the unknown. Like that's one of the things that really excites me as a builder as I work with leaders, visionaries and just all the like in any space because it's like you've been called. There's something in your heart leading you to do something that's never been done.
Right.
And that should be exciting because in the unknown, as we know, that's where God can do his greatest work. But
Yep.
also just practically, you're going to your experience, you're going to discover things about yourself that you never knew was in there. You're going to
Right.
discover a strength in you that you never knew that was in there. You're going to discover an intuition that you didn't know that you have. Like you're going to discover so much about yourself, but you're never going to discover those things if you stay in a place of comfort. Like
Right.
we cannot expect to grow if we're just going to always be in what's familiar. And I think that it's important that each and every one of us, and I hope that everyone listening gets this, that whatever you lead, and it's not even about necessarily a profession or career, but it's just you lead your life, that you should chase down opportunities to go into the unknown, because who
Mhm.
knows what could come of it? Who
Mhm.
knows how you're going to grow? Who knows how that can accelerate you towards whatever your dream is? And I really resonate just with your overall experience, because even for me, like when I think about my entire I'll call it pruning process in 2019, like I
Mhm.
really had to do something very similar, where I was rock bottom. Life seemed just impossible. It was just like, what in the world happened to me? And I dealt with my father being away in prison for something he didn't do. I dealt with my helping my mother. I dealt with coming home and transferring schools so I can be home with her and help in a church leadership role that I've never led in church leadership before. But it was just like, I'm gonna do whatever my mom says, right? I was just like thrust into this situation, similar to you. That's totally unfamiliar. Like in my mind, I was like, I'm just trying to play basketball. What in the world is all this stuff, right?
Mhm.
But it was through that process, that through the breaking, that I really discovered, no, my purpose.
Mhm.
It's through the breaking that I discovered, oh no, there's much more to me than I even thought. And so I think, even kind of bringing back one of the things that you said that you did that was really helpful for me as well, was really just taking an objective view of just my life. So like when I was at a breaking point, I didn't sit around and try to hold on to, oh yeah, no, I'm definitely good at that and I'm talented in this. It was like, no, 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 let's really start identifying some key things. Let me get real. And I know for me, like I kind of would, so for context, I remember when I turned 25, and I remember I had been through just a whole bunch of stuff, like a whole bunch of stuff. It would be for another conversation. But I remember being at 25, and I remember thinking to myself, you know what? Everything that I want to see happen is going to happen in these next 25 years.
Mhm.
Like, okay, I'd have been through what felt like the ringer from birth to 25, and whatever was going to happen between 25 and 50 was going to be the achievement of the things that I hoped for and I was praying for. So in my mind, I'm like, all right, we got to get honest. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? Where you got to say, listen, I can't be living in delusion. I'm not trying to be living in contradiction. I got to be honest. I know I went out to eat, took myself out to dinner, and I remember I asked myself 5 questions. All right, I
Mhm.
asked myself, what do I know? What don't I know? What am I good at? What am I not good at? What are my insecurities?
Mm. That's good.
And the thing was, to someone who might not be in a pressurized situation, you hear those questions and you might not even answer them completely like honest to yourself.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
when you're at a place of like, listen, I done tried this thing on my own. Listen, I done tried to do this, do that. All has failed. I'm at rock bottom. You got to answer those questions very honestly. Like those are questions you have to really look yourself in the mirror and say, "Oh no, I've been telling everybody I'm good at that, but really I have no idea what I'm doing.
Right.
I've been defensive around this insecurity, but I actually need to admit that like I'm insecure about like the way I talk, like something." And you just got
Mhm.
to say, and to me, yeah, having an objective view about your life allows you to be more self-aware.
Yeah.
It just allows you to be self-aware. So I think talk with me just a little bit, just surrounding the self-awareness piece of like, as you've gone from basically where you were in a basement to where now
Mhm.
you're successfully coaching and leading and doing all that you're doing. Talk about how like that self-discovery piece and your self-awareness of just who you are now.
Yeah, and that's, oh my God. First of all, that's, you just dropped some good gems right there, right? Um, there are so many things that I had to just assess, and I had to be honest. I had to be honest about myself. I think that prior to me living in the basement, I was in a comfortable state, and I think that's why I never felt pressured to just, launch out because I was comfortable.
Yeah.
But in from the basement, going from the basement and out, there were a lot of things that I had to correct. And one of the things that I had to really correct was just my vocabulary, my speech, what I spoke, right? I would do one thing, but then I would say the contrary. And I had to learn that whatever I say, my lifestyle, everything I am has to match what I write on paper. It has to match what I say I am. It has to match the vision that God gave me. And so I learned that I had to really stop self-sabotaging myself. I had to stop putting self-imposed limitations and thinking, oh, woe is me. I went through this. Yeah, I went through it, but that doesn't define me at all. It doesn't define my future or my destiny. So something that I had to do was I had to be honest with myself and say, there are things, Natalie, that you cannot take with you in your new horizon. The way you talk about yourself, the way you view yourself, one of the things that I had to struggle with was with shame. That was something that was just really attacking me with shame. And because of shame, I always wanted to be hidden. And so now I talk about that so, just so publicly. It's like you can't walk around in shame. You can't hide. How are you going to be able to serve, right? Our gifts and talents and our abilities are what God has deposited in us to serve the people we're called to serve. So how are we going to serve if we're hiding? So those things, I had to just completely eradicate them from my life and know that when I leave the basement, I have to be ready and I have to be prepared and I had to toss those things to the side because they're no longer viable in the new season that God was going to give me.
That's so good. I think one of the things I pulled just from your answer was that you made a decision to truly walk in integrity,
Yeah.
to really match what you were saying with what you were doing. And I think that's so key. Like, just as for anyone listening, like, if you are not going to make the decision to have integrity,
Hmm.
none of it's going to work. Like, you're not going to overcome anything. You're like, you will just be living in complete contradiction.
Right.
Like, you will be living a lie. So, and I think, like we're saying, have an objective view and be honest with ourselves, but really we're just speaking to have integrity.
Hmm.
Right? If you say you're going to do something, just do it. If you say you're going to be somewhere, be there. If you're saying you're going to show up, then show up. If you say you are something, then be that, right? As opposed to, what a lot of people would like to do, and I'm praying for all of them, is that they'll say, okay, I'll do this, but then they end up only doing like 60% of it. Or
Right.
they'll do the bare minimum, and then they're wondering why. Oh my goodness, why am I not advancing? Well, how come I'm in this rough place again? How come things aren't really working and accelerating the way they should? And it's like you are double-minded, right? I'm looking in the chat. Nydia, I pray let me know if I'm pronouncing your name right, please. Nydia, she said a double-minded man is unstable in all his ways.
Hmm.
Like that right there sums it up perfectly because it's the truth. Right. So hearing just number one, you decided to walk in integrity, right? To simply know I'm one track minded. I'm going to be who I know I'm called to be. But then also you mentioned stop self sabotaging.
Hmm.
And I think that's so significant because, oftentimes in our leadership, we think there's always something new we need to add. There's always something new we need to do. But oftentimes, we'll be able to overcome a lot more. We'll be able to make a lot more progress by simply saying, no, what do I need to take away? What do
Yeah.
I need to stop doing, right? If I were to put it in a business context, it's easy to think about, oh, okay, here's how we increase the revenue. Here's how we, make more money and everything like that. And we need to get more clients. We got to do more of this. And it's like, well, how about let's cut these expenses? Let's cut the expenses. Like that will grow our profit margin,
Right.
right? And that's
Hmm.
like very practical. But I like that idea, at least we're talking about in the context of how someone leads themselves, of let's figure out what mindsets, what behaviors, what phrases, what habits that we need to cut out. And so I think that speaks to just a process of unlearning. And I think you said the word, you said it earlier, deconstruction,
Yes.
right? Talk with us about just how that process worked for you because okay, you identify, okay, this is something I need to change, but talk about just like for someone here who's like, okay, I'm following you, everything that you're saying, Natalie, but how do I deconstruct the things that I know aren't serving me?
Right. So we have a tendency to we're good learners, right? Just
Hmm.
human beings. We're good learners, right? I'm a fast learner by nature, but it's really challenging to unlearn and to deconstruct, especially when you've been just raised a certain way or you learned it for years. We were talking offline about strongholds. Strongholds are things that you practice and you believe in. One of the things about strongholds is they're lies and we protect them, right? And so I had to like, okay, ding, ding, I had to deconstruct it out of my mind because I knew the vision that God gave me and where I knew where I was heading, those false beliefs were not going to work in that new season. They were not going to work. So I had to choose. Do I want to remain stagnant and just believe these lies? Or am I willing to unlearn them and learn something new and learn different principles and learn just new beginnings and launch into the new season? So I had to make a decision. I had to make a choice where I could keep those false beliefs and I'll just stay stagnant for the rest of my life and just remain in this basement. Or am I ready to let it go? And once I started to let those things go, and I will say it is painful because, those things, those are beliefs that we have been believing for years, and it's sometimes it could be part of our traits and part of our identity. And so deconstructing those things can be painful, but it's so much more painful to remain in the same cycle. It's so much more painful to be in that basement. It was so much more painful to be just roaming around with no exit. So I was willing to let go of that old person. I was willing to let go of those things and just go and launch into what I knew was next. And I'm grateful that I made that decision because that was the best decision of my life.
Oh my goodness. I love that language of that you are willing to let go of that old person.
Yeah.
Like I love that language because it is hard. Like I think that language does like it acknowledges the fact that no, it's painful to change. Right?
Hmm.
It's very, very painful to change. But when the pain of change is less than the pain of today, you've got to make a move.
Yes.
You've got to do something about it. And I think so often we have to just be, and I'm saying this very practically, we have to just be honest about where we are, right? But also just really look at the results we're getting.
Right.
Like, because, it's very easy for a lot of people to do, play the blame game and think about, oh, well, I'm not here because of this, and I'm not here because of, they didn't give me opportunity and all these excuses. But at some point, you really have to take responsibility for your life. You really have to take responsibility. And again, that's not to say that things are all in your control, because there are things that are out of your control, right? You think about
Right.
even what led you to the basement. Think about what led me into my brokenness and all this stuff. Like, some things are just out of our control, but it's still up to us to fix them. It's still up to us to say, well, if I want things to be different, I've got to change, and not change for the worse. Like, I have to make the decision to change for the better. And that's why I really appreciate just you talking about just the willingness to let go of that old version and making the decision to go higher. And I think what I want to touch on too, and then we can wrap up, is just the pace of it,
Hmm.
right? That we don't want anyone to leave this conversation thinking that, okay, in order to not break when things are hard, that it's a 48-hour process, right?
Mm.
In order to grow into who you're called to be, that all right, it's give yourself 7 days and you'll be good. Like, it's a process. So share with us just kind of your thoughts on, okay, how someone should approach mentally. Like, they know, okay, they're at the rock bottom, they're in the hard place, they've set a vision, they know where they need to go. Encourage them in terms of, okay, how you can walk this thing out.
Yeah. So I have this saying, go at the pace of grace. That's my key. Go at the pace of grace, but move, right? Don't just sit there and become stagnant and just, cry, but walk.
There we go.
Cry it. Yeah, do your boohoo, do what you got to do, but walk it, and go at the pace of grace because also you're human and you should have some grace on yourself and not be too hard, So, one of the things about me is I am a high achiever by nature. So being in that situation, being a high achiever by nature, I often put a lot of, woe is me on me, like, oh, you didn't finish the project, but that's okay. Work on it tomorrow. So my thing is go at the pace of grace, but just move. You have to move. You can't just stay stagnant. So if today your grace is at 50%, you did a good job. If all you could do was get up from the bed And those were some of my days. I would tell you that all you could do is get up from bed, you did a good job. Then tomorrow, put the foot on the floor, and just make the progress, a daily vocation where, you know what, I'm going to move. Today I can't run a mile. Well, I'll walk one, walk half a mile, whatever the case may be. Just go at the pace of grace, and never overwork yourself because I think that a lot of people, especially in leadership, we look at this journey as, just a final destination. And the truth is that your whole life is just a journey. So have those moments in between where you're living it out. Have those moments in between where you're processing and have those moments in between where you're reminiscing and looking back at the progress that you've made. So those are the things that I implement to this day.
I love that. And I think just to kind of really answer the question of how does someone not break when things get hard, just to kind of sum up everything that we spoke about, it's create a clear vision, be honest about where you are, ask yourself those questions that I listed out earlier, right? What do I know? What do I not know? What am I good at? What am I not good at? And what am I insecure about? But then also go at the pace of grace.
Hmm.
Right. And again, even in walking it out, deconstruct some things, reevaluate everything, reevaluate phrases, reevaluate environments, reevaluate things you're listening to, reevaluate it all, but
Hmm.
go at the pace of grace. I really
Yeah.
like that. I
Yes.
think that's going to be super, super helpful. Well, listen,
Yeah.
for everyone listening to this conversation, all right, understand that we're having this conversation because we want to help you grow in how you lead yourself. Because before you can lead and have influence with other people, you must have influence over yourself. And so we had our conversation talking about how to not break when things get hard. And so, Natalie, as we wrap up, can you just tell people, leave them with an encouraging word, and then let them know how they can connect with you and how they can get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can follow me on Instagram at I am Natalie Nolasco. And I guess my final word would be just keep moving. Keep moving. There's a greater horizon on the other side. And though it could be difficult to cross there, just keep moving and you'll see how everything will go into play.
I like it. Well, right now, Natalie, I'm dropping your Instagram link in the chat. So if anybody wants to connect with you there, they can. All of your links, all of your information can be found there. And I hope that as you listen, that you do reach out to Natalie because she's a wealth of wisdom, as you can see. But again, we're having this conversation because this is the lead up to the Dreamer Symposium. All right. It's the lead up to the Dreamer Symposium. And our theme is resilient leadership because not only do you need a strategy, not only do you need clarity on where you're going to need resilience. And so this conversation tonight, I hope that it was helpful to you. I hope that you got some gems, you got some nuggets that are simply going to help you lead yourself well as you are on your way to the Dreamer Symposium. Again, the Dreamer Symposium is happening December 5th and 6th. It is happening. It's a 2-day conference. It's absolutely amazing. It's a space for you to create vision as well as growing your self leadership for the new year. You can get your tickets now at dreamersymposium.com. And I look forward to seeing you all there. If that is all, if all hearts and minds are cleared, as they say in the old church, we will get out of here and get out of your way. But I hope that you guys do take something from this. And all I'm going to ask you to do too, before we even hop off this live, I'm going to ask you to share this with somebody. Share this with someone that you know has a dream, has goals, and that you care about because they need to grow as well. All right. Hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night, and we'll see you guys next time. All right. We did
Yay!
it. Awesome.